They say evil has many faces, but Sauron's face has always been the hardest to see. In a world where legends stride through forests and gods walk among mortals, none have cast a shadow as vast, as chilling, or as enduring as Sauron. And yet, for all the terror he inspired, his form remains cloaked in mystery. Who or what was he really? What did he look like when he walked the lands of Middle-earth? And why is his image so elusive, even in the texts that chronicle the rise and fall of his reign? To understand the terror of Sauron, one must begin not with a monstrous eye or a towering tyrant, but with a Maya named Myron, the Admirable. In the earliest days of Arda, before the world took its final shape, Myron was a being of order and perfection. A Maya of Aule the Smith, he loved structure, beauty, and power forged from chaos. His heart, though once pure, craved control. That craving led him to the feet of the original Dark Lord Melkor, whose vision of dominion twisted Mehron's admiration into servitude. And so Mehron was reborn as Sauron, the Abhorred, shedding his name and taking on a new face, one that would change many times. Sauron's earliest power was not just in magic or manipulation, but in metamorphosis. He was a shapeshifter. In the ancient tales of Beren and Luthien, he fought against Huan, the Hound of Valinor. He changed from wolf to serpent to a monstrous form. But Huan held him fast. To escape, Sauron was forced to abandon his body entirely and flee in the shape of a great bat, his blood falling like rain upon the trees. These were not mere illusions. Sauron's transformations were total. He could be beast or shadow, man or spirit, whatever form best suited his purpose. He was deception incarnate. When Melkor fell and the War of Wrath ended the First Age, Sauron fled judgment. He lingered in the edges of the world, hidden and silent. And when he returned in the Second Age, he did so with subtlety. Not all who wear fair faces have fair hearts. In the Second Age, Sauron returned not as a monster, but as Anatar, the Lord of Gifts. This guise, tall, noble, beautiful, was that of a man of divine bearing. His eyes gleamed with wisdom, his words with promise. To the elves of Eregion, he appeared as a benefactor, offering knowledge of craftsmanship, art, and the secrets of the world. Under his guidance, they forged the rings of power. But in secret, he created one ring to rule them all. The moment Sauron slipped the one ring on his finger, the elves felt the deceit like a blade to the soul. His fair form burned away in their memory, replaced by something darker, something truer. War followed, and with it, death. After his deception was revealed, Sauron shed his mask of grace and donned the armor of a conqueror. In Mordor, he raised Barad-dûr, a fortress of dread, and took the form of a towering warlord, a figure greater than any man in size and presence, cloaked in darkness, adorned in cruel armor. His visage became a weapon in itself, inspiring awe and fear wherever he appeared. Though still a Maya in essence, he now cloaked himself in terror. When Ar-Pharazôn, the proud king of Númenor, challenged Sauron for dominion over Middle-earth, Sauron submitted, willingly, not in defeat, but in cunning. He was taken in chains to Númenor, but there his tongue worked its poison. Slowly, he corrupted the king, turning him against the Valar and leading Númenor to ruin. In Númenor, Sauron's form changed again. He appeared noble to some, terrible to others. His eyes were feared even by the mighty. His shape remained that of a man, but no ordinary man. He was a being of unnatural beauty and malevolent charm, towering above all others. And when the sea swallowed Númenor for its rebellion, Sauron's body was broken by the wrath of the gods. He survived, but barely. After Númenor's fall, Sauron could no longer wear a fair face. His spirit fled back to Mordor, wounded and maimed. There he took shape again, but this time his form was no longer a disguise. He had become what he truly was, a creature of shadow, fire, and hate. He could no longer pass as anything but evil. His physical body, while still vast and terrible, bore the mark of his corruption. His hand, scorched black, still burned with heat from the One Ring. His face was veiled by malice, and yet he was no mindless beast. Sauron was a strategist, a sorcerer, a tyrant. He ruled with fear and brilliance, and above all, he watched. In the Third Age, Sauron's presence took on a new symbol, the Eye. In the books, the Eye is not a literal flame-bound organ atop Barad-dûr. It is a metaphor for his will. It sees everything, reaches everywhere, hunts those who carry the ring. His gaze becomes a force of psychological torment. Those who feel it know they are being hunted, not by a body, but by something deeper, darker, more penetrating. Yet he did have a physical form. By the time of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, Sauron had again assumed a body, this time known as the Necromancer of Dol Guldur. He was not yet whole, nor strong enough to reveal himself fully, but the wise feared him, and rightly so. When the White Council expelled him, he returned to Mordor and declared himself once more. At the end of all things, when the ring was destroyed and the shadow broke, Sauron revealed himself one last time. In the final pages of The Return of the King, Tolkien writes that a vast shape of shadow rose above Mordor, terrible and crowned with lightning. A hand stretched out from the dark, a hand that seemed poised to crush the armies of the West, but it was blown away by a great wind. This was Sauron's essence, not a man, not a beast, but a spirit of domination and despair. The destruction of the ring did not just shatter his power, it unraveled his being. With no body, no anchor, and no ring, he became nothing, a shadow blown into oblivion. Sauron's power lies not in the clarity of his form, but in its absence. Tolkien made the bold choice to obscure him, to keep his face always behind a veil of mystery and myth. In doing so, Sauron became not just a villain, but a symbol. He is corruption that hides behind promises. He is beauty twisted into horror. He is the whisper in the dark, the eye in the flame, the shape you almost see but never grasp. And that is what makes him terrifying. In the end, Sauron is not just a character, he is a force. And sometimes the most dangerous monsters are the ones we can't quite see.